Queen of Holes by C.S.R.
Chapter 6. It Could Be Worse. I couldn't quite recall exactly what happened to get us there. I remember being forced to go out to spend the day with my brothers and his friends, but how we ended up in the dungeon of the Kingdom of Nightmares was beyond me. This would be the last time I ever tried doing anything for Basel. I remember waking up in the darkness, smelling blood rather close by and all around. The conditions in the dungeon proved to be a very strong foundation, but very vile for those stuck within it. I looked around and saw that everyone was soon with me, with shackles around all of their wrists. Basel was awake and rather alert for a change, as he was staring out through the bars as though he was expecting something or someone. Lewin was laying on Darlene, who was just coming to. Helen seemed as though it had just come to as well. That left Marla, who was still out of it. I went over to my sweet bird's side, but was halted by the sound of footsteps and Basil's voice saying,
"I figured you'd check on your pet first. Sleeps like the dead, it seems."
I looked over at him, but his concentration seemed to be on whatever or whoever was coming towards us.
"Only proves you're a dirty old man."
I ignored his witless comment as I reached for the sleeping girl in attempts to wake her, but she remained to be knocked out cold.
"So, this is what we have to work with,"
echoed the voice of the Nightmare Prince, who was standing right outside the bars, keeping us confined.
"This will suffice. For now."
He turned to the servants by him.
"Take them out. We're taking them to the Queen right away. She's tired of waiting. You know how she gets when she's feeling impatient."
His attendants didn't need to take a breath before they opened the cell and walked in, forcing everyone still on the floor to stand. When they came up to Marla and me, I stood on my own, helping pull her up as well, in hopes to keep their fiendish claws off my sweet bird. She still was out of it, but was slowly gaining her consciousness. They reached for us and pushed us out with the others.
Still halfway out of her mind. If I do not want to be disappointed, I really need to not have any expectations for this wretch, it seems.
"Watch what you say, Vandal," I said as I adjusted myself to be face to face with him, as much as I could since the boy was taller than most people. Marla mumbled under her breath in response to my voice. The brat reached out for her, placing his hand on her chin as he said,
"Back from the dead, are we?"
Dead?
Marla's eyes glistened in confusion as she finally was coming to. I recoiled from him, giving distance between his hands and her face. I snarled at him as I said, "And watch those hands of yours." The brat stared down at me for a few seconds, and then directed his attention to my sweet bird.
"Queen Fervis would like to have a word with you. We thought it'd be best if your confidants were involved as well. You may feel more..."
He paused.
"Compliant."
I felt Marla grip onto my coat, telling me that she knew exactly what he was about.
"Come, follow me. We must not keep her waiting. Do not want her in any more of a foul mood." As I predicted, Basel was an annoyance, as he started to transition between whistling and humming on the way to the throne room. Eventually, he started to sing.
Well, in moments like this, we just got to remind ourselves that life is always full of ups and downs. In the times like this, when we feel overwhelmed, know that we don't get anywhere with a frown. So put on a smile and listen for a while as I help you to remember. It could be worse. It could be worse. I'll remind you why with each and every verse, that it could be worse. It could be worse. Trust me, I can tell you without needing to rehearse. Take it from me and you'll feel free as can be. It could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. Here we are with friends and family, and yet still we all look blue. At least we're not currently in agony, or orphans with no one to come home to. So time to replace that gloomy look on your face as I continue to sing.
Before the nuisance could start his new chorus, Jarvis said,
Please don't.
But Basil continued to sing.
It could be worse. It could be worse. You could be haunted by some horrible deadly curse. So it could be worse. It could be worse. Your entire life could have begun to submerse. So you know, old chum, life's much better then. It could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. Yes, it's completely true that life can be a snooze, but that's why you gotta go do what you want to do.
This song has nothing to do with what's going on.
Jarvis interjected again, but Basil responded in song.
Well, as a matter of fact, I haven't thought about that, but still, it could be worse. It could be worse. All your dreams could have gone and dispersed because it could be worse. It could be worse. Your body could be on a slab all transverse. So come sing along with this truthful song. It could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse.
I looked back at the tall brother who was moving his body about with the tune of the imbecile's voice. Basil sang,
It could be worse.
and then the tall one responded,
It could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. You could already be laying down face up in a hearse. So be more forgiven, because at least you're living. Remember that it could be worse. So much worse. It could be worse!
Basil then took a moment to bow as though we were entertained by his performance. Looking at his company, I could tell that the others were just as fed up with him as I was. Especially since they constantly groaned and told him to be quiet as he sang. If I was allowed to, I would have murdered him the moment he opened his mouth. But, alas, I had my duties, and they just so happened to require him to be alive. For now.
I was sure that today would be the day. I would finally get the heart of a god, and I would become the most powerful being in Utridesma. I would be unstoppable. All I needed was to get the miscreant, known as the Marla, to cooperate. And I had never had trouble with getting people to cooperate, especially if I had the right tools of torture. From what Meticulous has gathered, it sounded as though this fool got close to people easily, so she would be easy to manipulate if the lives of others were threatened. I started to enjoy the thought of making this girl squirm and scream. Oh, the bargaining chips I held. She seemed to know nothing of pain, and I planned on being her teacher. She would, if still possible, come to thank me one day. It's best not to have any attachments to any person. It only leaves space to get hurt in ways you never would want or would expect. I learned that very well as a young girl and relearned it even harsher when I was a woman in my prime. There is pain we require, pain we crave, and pain that either can be or should be avoided. Just as I was getting tired of waiting, becoming rather restless on my throne, Meticulousness finally entered, bringing the twit, Marla, and several of her relations along, as well as the pest, Barsol. There were only 4, not including the twit and pest. But I knew I could still make this work. With how easy and naive the girl sounded, one attachment would be enough to get her to tell me anything I want. If it was true that she hid her heart, I would get her to tell me where it was at any cost. Metochilosis bowed before me, followed by the colorful relation, Barcel and Marla.
Your Majesty,
The boy started.
I have brought who you asked for.
And so have I.
The idiot said with his wide, dubiously charming smile.